I have been gone for a good bit of time. It's been a little while since we touched down to some of these terrible, tragedy-ridden stories that we are so used to covering on this channel. And while I had an absolute blast on my break, playing lots of card games, also gonna give him another 1,000 points of attack.
You just ended the fucking game.
Hanging out with buddies, cleaning my house a bit, and just generally chillaxing.
Oh my god.
But that time is over. It is once again time to fill my head with nightmares, with stories of grandeur, and tales from the darker side of the world where souls are being dragged down to hell. Yes, I know exactly what you all want, and it is finally time to be delving back into HELLRAISER. And one that I found particularly interesting to myself, a story about a puzzle guardian, or rather his son, and the terrible things that he has brought to his child's mind. A man who has grown up with an utter hate for his father, for being shown and told all these mystical riddles that would inevitably lead to everybody's own demise. And not just him, and not just his father, but rather an entire family at a family reunion. And the story we'll be covering is a story called Fire Trap, and one that will actually bring in some other characters that we've seen before, mostly just a Cenobite that we've seen more than a couple times, and one that may be one of the most sinister ones that I've seen out of all these stories so far. It seems that whenever this particular Cenobite actually shows his gruesome face, somebody loses a couple limbs. Somebody is kind of conjoined in to make one of these chimera creations, these obscene beasts that we've never quite seen before. These Cronenberg-esque type of monsters, who overall I think would be the most terrifying, besides maybe the first one that we've seen in the Crusader story. But this Cenobite seems to be the one to make the most deals, at least one that can kind of compete with Face himself, and actually beckoning people to bring them more bodies to kind of combine these things, and to promise lies of them becoming immortal along with the Cenobites. This story deals with a man with his cousin, who has time and time again over the years just kind of shown how crazy he might be. This man who is constantly talking about his father and these demonic things that he believes that his father has been doing to him. And while everybody doesn't really seem to kind of believe this man, as they believe that maybe his father is just kind of doing some tough parenting, forcing his son to study. And while you might think so at first glance, the things that he is forcing his child to study are something a little bit different. And where the story will begin is with a man named Whitcomb, who is kind of rushing over to his grandfather's estate before a reunion can kind of set off after receiving a very vague note to not come here. And as Whitcomb speeds down the road, he will try his hardest to stop this terrible craziness. Whitcomb was racing to the old home place. He knew it would be too late to intercept Byron, but maybe he'd get there before Byron tried anything too crazy. Or rather, insane was the word that he was thinking. Byron had stopped by to see him the night before. Whitcomb knew because he had found the note under the hood of his car. "Sorry I have to do this, Steve, but I don't think you'll want to be at the family reunion this year. You know I always liked you, and I don't blame you for the way things turned out. Don't try to come, if you know what I mean." And upon receiving this terrible note, Whitcomb knows exactly what this means. He knows that his entire family could possibly be in danger, and the only reason why this man would actually unstrap his battery cables is because Whitcomb's cousin Byron does not want him to be caught up in these terrible events to come. And the first thing that Whitcomb initially decides to do is that he's going to call his grandfather's place, and to kind of warn the family that Byron has potentially lost everything, that he's finally snapped, and that he's coming to wreak something horrible upon the entire family, all in slew just to get to his father. And when nobody answers, Whitcomb jumps in his car and decides to drive there as fast as he possibly can. For he knows that over the years that Byron has talked so much about his father, about everything that this man has done to him when he was a child, and now he can never kind of forgive him about this. And as Whitcomb is driving up, seeing these two gentlemen standing outside, he knows that he is too late. He immediately pulls over and he begins to dart for the door, trying to rescue his family from these terrible things that he knows that his cousin has sprung upon them. And when he does so, the two firefighters grab him by the arms. "Let me go! My family's in there! Let me go! Don't be crazy! It's not safe! Where is everybody? Did anybody get hurt? I don't see any of my relatives." "I'm sorry, sir, but you know how many people were in there? As far as we can tell, no one, absolutely no one has gotten out. We tried, and we couldn't stop the one guy from getting in there before it was all over." "Getting in? What do you mean?" "Yes, another man broke in. About your age, black hair, real tall. Do you know who this could have been?" And as the firefighter says this, where we see Whitcomb's face up close and personal, and looking a little too much like Richard Nixon himself, something that I found to be a little funny. But as we'll see these kind of events kind of roll out through the rest of the story, it is not funny at all. It immediately bursts past these two firefighters, knowing that Byron still probably lies inside, and knowing that when he finally catches up to him, he will wreak the punishment that he has unfolded upon his entire family. And as he approaches the front door, he can barely tell that a fire has broken out within the house. And that is kind of a common thing that we will see throughout this story as we see the innards of this house, is that none of it really looks burnt down at all. There's only really a couple rooms that kind of seen this, and it was a little bit confusing to understand how exactly this actually killed everybody. But it's just one part of this thing that I didn't really understand. But as Whitcomb opens the front door, he immediately regrets it, as the smell begins to waft out through the front door, and the only thing that he can think about the smell of this is that it smells exactly like roast pork. And as he looks in, we are greeted to a panel of tragedy, as we see every single family member inside completely dead, scorched by the flames, asphyxiated by the smoke. And as Whitcomb looks all around, he can recognize the faces of his dear beloved family. He could recognize them all. Cousin Val, her baby was only 6 months old. Aunt Timmy, Uncle Barney. He groaned, spilling it, letting it all out. This can't be happening. And as Whitcomb is bawling his eyes out and just kind of letting his emotions flow out through this house, through all the bodies of the people that he has once loved throughout his life, we cut to the next panel where we will actually get to learn a little about his cousin, about Byron himself, and kind of get an inside look into how this man was raised, about how this terrible craziness has kind of come across him, and about how he has gotten to this choice of what he has done, and a conversation that Byron and Whitcomb had years before. It can't be, Byron. Do you even know what you're saying? It's crazy. You've got to see, Steve. I'm not crazy, and I'm not lying. He really isn't human. Look, Byron, we all know that your dad is a strange bird, but he's not inhuman. You say he's been hard on you, making you study, but that's not that unusual. But you don't understand. It's that book. That damn book. What kind of book, Byron? I don't understand what you're even talking about. It's a book of riddles. Riddles? What's so bad about? Shut up! Shut up and just let me finish. And then the words have flowed out of him as fast as he could get them out. He probably wasn't even capable of stopping at any rate. And with this, Whitcomb listened. Somebody needs to kill him, Steve. Nobody knows what he's done, what he still does, what he's capable of doing. No one believes me, and they just think I'm crazy. But of course, they never saw that book. They never had to listen while he read out of it. They never had to have their father open it up in front of them and hold their heads so that they couldn't turn their faces from those goddamn pages. And the riddles. What do you do with babies, Steve? What? I know what you're thinking. Hold it, kiss it, love it. But that's not it. And as we cut to this crazy panel of Byron's face, just overshadows of the terrors that his father have shown him. Not anything about math, no history, or at least not of this world's history. He says something so completely terrible. He begins to talk about the thing that you do with babies and the riddle that he was taught this entire time. And I'm sorry if this is kind of upsetting to anybody, but it is merely just a part of this story, is that you bash them across the black stone. And this is the very moment that Whitcomb knew that his cousin was completely gone. That from now on, this would be a person that he'd have to keep a close eye on, and somebody that he would need to make sure is kept in very close care. And upon kind of reading this for the first time, hearing about this strange riddle book, it seemed like something that we've actually seen before. In the last story of the HELLRAISER Holiday Special, when we are greeted to a book of nursery rhyme. Not quite riddles, but the only time that I've actually seen a configuration of a similar value, of being on pages, of being written words of the sort, instead of one of the boxes that we see every single time, and probably one of the easiest to kind of slip up and actually open the gates to hell on a mere accidental good read. I know it's something that eventually is going to happen to me. I know it's not going to be something so obvious as a HELLRAISER comic book, but I know it is bound to happen. I'm going to go to a Goodwill, I'm going to go to some kind of thrift store, and I'm going to pick up something that I think looks awesome. And before you know it, I am going to be not here anymore. Alright, so if that happens, please bust out your spell books, start reading, and pull my soul from the grasp of the Cenobites themselves. It's the only thing that I ask of you besides watching these videos. I don't want money, I just want a backup plan, for Christ's sake. But from here, we will be cutting back to the present day, as Whitcomb is still standing in the abundance of all of his dead family members, and the two firefighters begin to run up towards him. Listen, pal, I understand these people are your family, but you can't come in here right now. It isn't safe. Get your hands off me. Byron set this fire, and he's in here somewhere, and I damn well intend to find him. And once again, Whitcomb dashes away from these two men, and they just inevitably kind of decide that they're going to let him have this look around, and that they'll kind of escort him throughout this whole thing, make sure he doesn't hurt himself, and eventually they will talk him out of this. They will bring him outside of the building, all in an effort to not kind of push this man over the edge after these terrible events that have already unfolded. And as Whitcomb is making his way up the stairs, he hears the stirring of a man scrambling around. And knowing exactly who this is, he runs, he darts, and he finds his cousin Byron sitting in a room, crouched down on the floor with a book of riddles that he's been brought up with a terrible, terrible grin across his face. Byron, I can't find him. He got away. I thought the fire would get him, and this damn book, but I was wrong. I know where he is though. I know where he is, and this book can take me right to him. If I can't kill him here, then I'll solve the riddles in this book, and that'll open the door, and then I can kill him there. You bastard! You killed them all! Just to get to your stinking father, you killed them all! You crazy bastard! And as Whitcomb is beating his cousin down into the ground, trying to exert the pain that he feels, and the pain that his family has felt, the two firemen burst in the door, and they grab him by the shoulders and tell him that he needs to leave this to the police, that the thing that he is doing is only going to lead to his own tragedy, that even vengeance is going to be only stapled with more punishment. And as they do so, Byron runs out of the door, into the next room, murmuring to himself that his father cannot hide for too much longer, that he has been taught too well. And with the last thing that he says before he leaves the door of this room is, "What do you do with a baby, Steve?" And as Steve and the firefighters are looking out the door after Byron just kind of left this premise, as they tell Steve that he needs to leave it alone, that he needs to let the cops come up here and kind of deal with the situation themselves. And Steve, or Whitcomb, eventually agrees that this isn't quite worth his time, and that eventually that Byron will get what is coming to him. And as they begin to leave the room, they hear crazy ramblings coming across from the hallway. Somewhere, words are spoken. Byron knows the riddle book is a puzzle to be solved, to open the way, and he speaks and places the key into the lock. Jesus! What the hell? Look out! I think a part of the house just collapsed. Something blocked off the front door or something. I can't see shit without my lamp. Come on, let's just get out of this place. And as the entire house is filled with smoke, we'll be cutting to the next couple panels where we will meet somebody entirely too familiar, and this is a point where we know that it is all over. As we see the Cenobite that we've seen in the hospital story, the one where a leopard who is slowly kind of losing his body eventually teaches a nurse to solve this mysterious puzzle box, and giving sight to this very exact same Cenobite. What have we here? I think we can do some business, my good man. What do you say to a good old-fashioned game, Barney old pal? And after seeing the Cenobite for the first time in the story, he begins to pick up all these different limbs off the ground, and he begins his work of assembling. And with the next couple of panels, we are cutting back over to Steve as they make their way trying to find their escape route out of this house, until something terrible comes their way. Come on now, be careful. You can never tell if a staircase is solid after a fire. Quiet, what was that? And as they look down to the bottom of the staircase, pointing their flashlight to it, they see the terrible face and something very much too familiar to Steve himself. A creature that would come for them, that would come for their bodies. Whitcomb can see the face of his Uncle Barney and the thing that climbs in the staircase. He's pretty sure that at least two of the grasping claws had belonged to his first cousin May. He'd watched her play piano often enough, and she'd been quite good. Move, you idiot! Run! Aussier, no! Behind the biting and tearing continue, Aussier does not scream for long. Follow me, we can get out this way. Is it coming? No, I think it's still busy. Ahead, Whitcomb knew that there was a way out through the playroom, another way down. Here, this one, if I can just get the door. And as they approach this new door, and Whitcomb begins to pull and push until this thing eventually rips open, he is greeted to another set of faces that he recognizes. The faces of his loved ones all merged into one of these chimera-like beings, one of these Cronenberg-esque monsters. And as one of these firefighters has already been taken down, torn apart by these vicious monsters, another one is yet to follow. As they see this beast from the ceiling, and it begins to claw and strike at this man, cutting his arm and sending him to the ground as Whitcomb continues to make his way out. He knew the house well, and he went from one room to the next, using entrances he had remembered by heart in his grandfather's huge place. Nothing seemed to be following him, and he met nothing as he crept. And as Steve continues his terrible journey through this house, he opens his very last door, and the thing that he is greeted to is yet another trap. Looking into this final room, we are greeted to every single one of these creations, as well well as their master, the Cenobite that we have seen through a bunch of different stories, as he stands there with his creations and greets Steve proper. Come on in, take your shoes off, set a spell. And Steve knows that he's lost. But before he can meet his terrible fate, an arm grabs him by the shoulder and the door in front of him slams shut. And it is none other than his cousin Byron, the man who has caused everything that has unfolded in this house. And he tells him that he can find them a way out of here. On the other side, angry blows fell on the door. Wickham can feel them thudding with inhuman strength against the wood. We can't hang around. That door won't hold them for long. There's another stairwell to the basement. Don't you remember? It's locked, Byron. Don't worry. I have the key. I think we'll be safe in here for a moment. Byron, what is it? What's going on? This cannot be real. Oh no? I tried to tell you all of you. If only some of the others had listened to me, then I wouldn't have to do what I did. God, Byron, how could you do it? You killed everybody in the house just to get to your father. I thought I could incinerate him, but my father's a guardian, a puzzle guardian. I told you he wasn't human. All for nothing. Shit. But why are they chasing us, Byron? Are they after you? Are they only trying to get to the person who killed them all? Quiet, Steve. I can hear them. They're out there. And as Byron continues to stand next to this door, hearing the horrors approaching it, something passes into Wickham's brain, knowing that these creatures are more than likely just looking for the person who has actually summoned them, the person who has caused all this terrible pain and death. And he thinks to himself that if they're only coming for Byron, that it will give them exactly what they are looking for. And once again, Byron begins to kind of try to jog Steve's memory about all these childhood memories, about how they used to run up and down this basement stairwell time and time again, and that this is the place that they need to get to. Well, when Byron says this, Steve looks to him and he just merely tells him that yes, he does remember, and that he needs to let him go down there first. And as he says this, Byron agrees, but he tells him that they need to hurry, because they can hear the clicking and the turning of the doorknob outside, and surely enough, the thudding will begin once again, and these terrible beasts will have their way. And suddenly, they do, and the door bursts open, and we are greeted to another one of these chimera-like beings, this creature with pure white eyes, with its ribcage sticking out through its back, waiting for its time to feed and to assemble more of itself. And upon Steve seeing this, he grabs Byron by the shoulders and he bends him down, bashing his knee into his chest and telling this maddening creature that he can have the bastard. And with the final panel, we are greeted to a shot of Steve just looking at all these terrible beings running through the door as he lays there on the floor, terrified and knowing exactly what will come next. And as Steve runs down the stairway to the basement, he listens to the screams from above, hoping that they will last long enough for him to actually make his way out of here. And something that I also found so terribly wild is he's just kind of hoping that his cousin will stay alive long enough during his dissection, during his reassemblation, long enough for him to actually make his own escape. And while I do not blame this man, as his entire family has gone down, even if Byron was abused for his entire life, this is no reason why he should take this out upon everybody that they've ever loved, just to get to his mere father. But as he continues to listen to the screams coming from above, he reaches the bottom of the stairs and he looks across, seeing a door wide open and the natural light pouring through, and knowing that this is his way out, that this is the way to finally make it out of this accursed house. And he begins to run until he makes it to the entrance of the door, and this is just merely another trap. As he makes his way through this door, Steve screams no, as we're greeted to the face of the Cenobite that has caused all this havoc throughout the house. And he is greeted to something most terrible, something looking a little bit of a seance, and something that kind of reminds me of the ending of the movie Hereditary, where everybody is just kind of sitting around and waiting for this man to approach, as we see all the Cenobite's pets standing there, as well as the head of Byron being held by his father, being forced to look into this book, and a situation that I find so incredibly cruel. Why, Steve, you didn't think we'd let you leave without treating the whole family? No, Daddy, please! Wickham's sanity crouched in his brain, even as he crouched before the madness that cordoned him off. Dear Byron, we always knew you'd bring this family together. And as we are looking at everybody corral around Steve, waiting to give him the proper family reunion that he never got in his whole life, something more sinister that he's ever experienced, this is inevitably the end of our story, as it ends in utter tragedy, like every single one of these stories always do. I'm hoping eventually we will read one of these comics that is kind of going to end on a good note, alright? I don't think that's ever really quite happened in the comic book series. The only one that I can really think of is about the one about the fetus inside of the lady who wants to become a Cenobite, and because he has no idea what any of this is, the Cenobites merely ascend him into the skies to become his own thing, to traverse the universe in his own specific way, and that was really the only happy ending that we've ever seen in one of these books. But overall, I do think this is a very good one. I think it kind of touches with the emotions with a little bit, with Byron just kind of being tortured by his father for his entire life, really. Being shown all these different riddles, being shown all these different gateways to hell, as his father is actually one of these guardians who is constantly trying to feed this puzzle souls and kind of, I don't know, maybe he was trying to pass this down as a family kind of deal. But it shows a story of abuse with one man, but inevitably this man just kind of circles the cycle. He kind of passes this on to his own family, and upon just trying to get rid of his own father, just taking everybody around him down with it. And by the end of it, he didn't even get to do so. It almost seemed like maybe his father was becoming a Cenobite himself, but just the ending couple panels of this, showing the shot of Byron's head being held up by his dad, being forced to kind of look into this book as he pleads with him to just please stop. It is just a story that kind of stuck with me the first time I'm reading this. This comes out of HELLRAISER book 5, and there is a lot of really good stuff in here. There's kind of an origin story about how these Guardians of the Puzzles are made, and it's one that I'm really excited to get to, as well as the next book about another child who happens to come in contact with these Cenobites and does a little bit of conflicting with that fetus story that I was talking about to begin with. But yes, everybody, we are back. We are telling these creepy stories. Hopefully not every single time. We'll get to some other stuff. I hope you guys enjoy the next kind of 2 videos I'm going to be putting out after this. They don't really have anything to do with comics. They're just kind of a story time thing that I did, and then a video where I kind of hang out with my buddy and we kind of play this game. Then I'm excited to see how that edited video kind of turns out. But I'm very excited to be back. I'm very excited to see all you again. Please talk to me down in the comments and stuff. I very much appreciate it. I've missed you all. Jerry, I cannot wait to hear what you've been reading, about the story you've been writing. Everybody go check out his channel. Print, Ronan, Uma, Umbra, Miguel, Steve, Aaron, Eric, Point Vector, Popcorn, if you're still around. I feel like I haven't seen your comments in a minute and I miss you. But yes, everybody, it feels good to be back, and I'm really excited to be doing these things again. That month off did me some good. I got to have a lot of fun with friends and family, things like that, kind of pick up some new hobbies and stuff. So thank you all so much for being so supportive. Miguel, I did go out and get a coffee with that $5 that you sent me, and I want to tell you, it was absolutely delicious. I got a macchiato with 3 shots of espresso, and it was great. It was great. But yes, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next episode of From the Heart. Everybody, have an absolutely fantastic day.